You know the moment when someone shares a really deeply personal story and the entire room just changes? Remember this: facts inform, but stories transform. Hey guys, I'm Dr. Liz Moyer, and I'm excited to share with you why stories matter so much. And they don't just matter to you, but they matter to the people that you live with, work with, and maybe even that random stranger. I want to show you how you can share your story very quickly and create a meaningful connection. For 5 years, my husband and I went through a challenge of trying to have children. And while we shared some of our story, we didn't often become very vulnerable. But something unexpected happened when we decided to have that real moment with people. The conversations changed. There's definitely science behind this, so enter the nerd in me. But our brains are wired for storytelling. In fact, when we hear a story, the neurons in our brains fire as if we're experiencing what we're hearing. And it's really how we have learned, how we have connected, and how we have grown throughout our entire life. Now, your story, and yes, even the challenging parts, they contain wisdom that others need. I've read a lot of research on storytelling, and in fact, in the comments, I will have a few resources for you if you'd like to dig deeper and better understand how to tell a story. But it's one thing to understand or know the science, the facts behind it, and it's another thing to actually put that into practice. And I was at a workshop, and the test was you had to stand up in front of everyone and talk about something that required persistence. So I thought about talking about my doctorate or being an NCAA athlete or just my experience in the military. But what actually had come to mind was by far the most difficult thing was going to thousands of doctor's appointments, getting sticked, it felt like 1,000 times, shots, surgeries, unanswered questions. So I took a chance and said, all right, I'm going to share a little bit with my peers on what's been going on in our life. In the back of my head, I thought, man, they're going to sit here and go, this person isn't very serious about the future or is complaining, or it's just another story of, oh, a woman that wants to be pregnant. But instead, I was met afterwards by three different individuals, all sharing some type of connection. And I had a senior leader who had gone through something different, a peer who really what they had experienced was completely different, but they could relate to just the healthcare system and sometimes trying to navigate insurance or being really frustrated when you couldn't get the answers that you were looking for. And the last person just said, hey, thanks for being honest, for sharing that when you show up to work, sometimes you're not 100%. So, overall, what I gained from that exercise was a realization that you can know the process, you can understand the importance of a story and not put it into practice. But I want to go over with you a really simple framework that you can practice. And what I like about this is that you can quickly tell your story without feeling like you're oversharing or trying to one up the person next to you who's just shared something they're going. Of note, I will have the story framework down in the information section. If you find this helpful, please leave a comment or make sure you subscribe and share with someone else who you think this could be helpful. All right. So number one is you want to go over the status quo. Think about what was normal or the before. For me, it was just assuming that when we wanted to have a family, it was going to happen. Number two, disruption. What unexpected challenge appeared? Think about this as that moment that everything changed. And for me, it was realizing that doctors were not giving the answers or the solutions that I was looking for. Number three, we transition into the disruption, and we want to talk about the struggle that you faced. Remember, do not sugarcoat this. Focus in on two things: emotions and questions. And this will prevent you from really jumping into those bit by bit details that may derail the conversation. So personally, I felt lost, kind of exhausted, and pretty disappointed. And the question that I kept on having was, what do I not know? What question actually am I not asking to hopefully get a better answer? All right. And one thing to point out, questions number two and three tend to be the conflict in a main story. So that's a good little frame of reference. Number four is you're moving towards the insight. Think about it like this: What did you realize that changed everything? For me, what I actually realized was that I needed to do additional research and that was in my control, and that everything else I couldn't control. And I knew that up here, but I had to accept it here. Number 5, we jump into the transformation. The question you want to answer is, how are you different now? I can't say I became more patient. That is still in progress. But I was willing to ask for help more. And I was more comfortable with the uncertainty of realizing that sometimes things just don't go in the time frame that we'd like. And the last one is 6, which is the wisdom. What can others learn from your experience? They may not go through what you go through, but there is an insight that they can gain. Really, my journey taught me quite a few things, and I think a lot of it was for me personally. But something that I was able to share with others was that you, one, may be working next to a person who has a solution to your problem, and you've got to have that vulnerability to share it. So that's what I've tried to push out of that conversation is take that risk, because potentially there's an answer on the other side. Just like anything, we don't want to overshare, and we want to be mindful about when is it appropriate to have these conversations and these stories. Everyone that's listening to this right now has a story. You've gone through something, or you're going through it right now. And it could be about health. It could be about relationships, career setbacks, and really actually it could be something positive. But whatever your journey has been, I encourage you to use this framework and write it out, even if you don't need to speak with someone about it, even if you're not in a leadership role. I just want to emphasize again that there's so many insights that people can gain from your story, and remind you that your story matters and it's worth being shared. If you would like to hear a little bit more about my journey and some of the lessons that I personally learned, whether it was growing empathy for others or continuing to ask why, that'll be linked as well down below. I'm looking forward to hearing your stories and what insights you have and what wisdom you can share from that. Until next time.